You know that quiet moment when you look in a mirror and suddenly feel like you don't even recognize the person staring back at you? When you feel lost, disconnected, or disappointed with where your life is? When you start questioning if you're ever going to become the person you thought you would be? That moment is painful. It makes you doubt yourself. It makes you feel behind. But what if the problem isn't who you are, but how you've been seeing yourself all this time? If you stay with me to the end of this video, I'm going to show you a Stoic shift that will permanently change how you view your identity, your potential, and your entire life. Before we continue, make sure you like this video and subscribe to support the channel. Number 1. Your self-image is a story you learned, not who you are. Most people grow up believing they already know who they are. They repeat old labels, old mistakes, old stories, until those stories become their identity. But the truth is, your self-image wasn't created by you. It was shaped by parents, teachers, friends, culture, and moments that wounded you long before you had the strength to understand what was happening. Marcus Aurelius said that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. But what if those thoughts weren't yours to begin with? What if the limits you believe about yourself were planted in you by someone who didn't even understand their own mind? You've spent years fighting an enemy that only exists in your head. You may think you're lazy, but maybe you were just overwhelmed. You may think you're not smart enough, but maybe no one ever taught you how to learn. You may think you're not good enough, but maybe someone made you feel small a moment you were weakest. Imagine carrying a belief for years that was never true in the first place. That is the burden most people live with. That is why so many feel stuck. You are not broken. You are misinformed about who you truly are. The Stoics believed that the only thing we truly own is our ability to make choices. Everything else, your past, opinions, judgments, and labels, belong to the world. When you attach your identity to things outside your control, you suffer. When you detach, you become free. Who you think you are today is only the product of years of influence, repetition, and emotional memory. None of it is permanent. None of it is final. You can unlearn what hurts you and rebuild what strengthens you. Real growth begins when you realize that your self-image is not a fact. It is simply a story. And if it's just a story, you can change it. But you cannot change a story you won't question. You cannot transform a belief you never challenge. You must step back and observe your mind the way a Stoic observes the world. Calmly, honestly, without fear. And when you do, you begin to see something powerful. Your identity is not a prison. It's clay. And you've been holding the tools to reshape it your whole life. When you finally stop assuming that everything you believe about yourself is true, a new door opens. A doorway into who you could be, not who you were told to be. That is the beginning of inner freedom. Number 2, you are not your thoughts, and you never were. One of the greatest Stoic lessons is simple. You are not your thoughts. Most people never realize this. They feel something and assume it defines them. They think something and assume it's their identity. If a negative thought shows up, I'll fail, I'm not enough, I can't do this, they take it personally. But thoughts are automatic. They're mental noise, shaped by experience and emotion, not truth. Seneca said that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Your mind produces stories constantly, but you are the one who chooses whether to believe them. Thoughts are like clouds passing through the sky. None of them stay. None of them represent the sky itself. The sky remains vast, open, untouched. You're that sky. But your entire life, you've been taught to chase clouds, fear clouds, hold on to clouds. That is why you feel unstable inside yourself. You've identified with what comes and goes instead of the part of you that remains. When you can observe your thoughts without becoming them, everything changes. Suddenly, anxiety loses its grip. Fear becomes manageable. Self-doubt becomes only a passing visitor, not your identity. You begin to experience a new kind of clarity, the clarity that comes from separation. The Stoics trained themselves to pause before reacting, to let a thought land without letting it take control. This is what allows you to see yourself clearly. If you don't separate who you are from what you think, your mind becomes your master instead of your tool. But when you create distance, you take your power back. You begin to make decisions based on reason, not emotion. Discipline begins to feel easier because you aren't fighting your thoughts. You're simply refusing to let them command you. This separation gives birth to inner peace. Not a peace that depends on circumstances, but a peace that grows from knowing that nothing inside your mind has the authority to define you. You are the observer. You're the one who gets to decide what stays and what goes. When you realize this, your relationship with yourself transforms. You stop being your own enemy. You stop tearing yourself down. You stop believing every negative story your mind invents. You begin living as the author of your identity, not the prisoner of your thoughts. And once you grasp this truth, your self-image becomes something completely new, something flexible, honest, and rooted in inner strength. Number 3, you are exactly who you prove yourself to be through action. The next transformation is one of the most important. You are not what you say you will do. You are not what you plan to do. You are what you consistently do. Epictetus taught that if you want to improve, you must be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Why? Because true identity is revealed through action, not intention. Most people escape into dreams and goals because taking action scares them. Action exposes you. Action reveals your discipline or lack of it. Action forces you to confront the truth about yourself. This is why your self-image stays weak when you avoid doing the hard things. Every time you break a promise to yourself, your self-respect erodes. Every time you choose comfort over growth, your identity shrinks. Every time you set a goal and avoid taking the first step, your mind learns that you cannot be trusted. And once your mind no longer trusts you, confidence disappears. Motivation fades. Self-belief dies. But the opposite is also true. When you do what you said you would do, especially when it's hard, your identity strengthens from the inside. This is why small daily habits matter more than big motivational moments. If you meditate for 5 minutes every day, your mind begins to see you as someone disciplined. If you exercise when you don't feel like it, you prove that your choices are stronger than your feelings. If you work on your goals every day, even with small steps, your mind learns that you are a person who moves forward. Identity is built the same way mountains are built, grain by grain, moment by moment, action by action. And every action you take becomes a vote for the type of person you want to be. The Stoics understood that character is not something you think about, it's something you practice. You become brave by doing brave things. You become wise by making thoughtful decisions. You become disciplined by choosing discipline repeatedly. You don't wait to feel like the person you want to be. You act, and then your feelings follow your behavior. This is how you rebuild your relationship with yourself. This is how you create unshakable self-respect. You don't talk about who you want to be, you prove it. And once you start proving it consistently, everything inside you shifts. Your self-image no longer comes from insecurity or doubt. It comes from evidence. Real evidence that you can rely on. Evidence that you are capable. Evidence that you are stronger than your excuses. Evidence that you are becoming someone powerful. Number 4, you will see yourself differently when you stop seeking others' approval. One of the biggest reasons people misjudge themselves is because they look at their reflection through other people's opinions. When someone disrespects you, you take it personally. When someone ignores you, you assume it means you're not valuable. When someone criticizes you, you repeat their words in your mind until they become your beliefs. But the Stoics warned that the moment you allow someone else's opinion to shape your identity, you hand your freedom to them. You become a puppet, controlled by praise and destroyed by criticism. Think about how much of your life has been shaped by the fear of judgment. How many opportunities you didn't take. How many conversations you avoided. How many versions of yourself you killed off because someone might not approve. You dimmed your own light just to make others comfortable. You shrank your own potential just to avoid being misunderstood. But here is the truth. People judge from their own insecurities, not your reality. Their criticism reflects their limitations, not your worth. Their doubts reflect their own fear, not your abilities. When you stop caring about approval, something amazing happens. You begin to act from authenticity, not fear. You start making decisions based on your values, not someone else's expectations. You stop performing. You start living. The Stoics taught that freedom is not the ability to do whatever you want. It is the ability to stop needing permission to be yourself. This is why detachment from opinions is a form of power. It frees your mind from emotional chains. It frees your heart from comparison. And it frees your identity from the prison of other people's thoughts. You begin to see yourself with clarity, not insecurity. You stop chasing validation and start chasing purpose. You stop trying to impress and start trying to grow. Your relationship with yourself becomes more honest, more peaceful, more stable. You start standing firm in who you are, and ironically, people respect you more for it. They sense the confidence. They sense the groundedness. They sense the inner strength of someone who knows themselves deeply. And for the first time, you begin to feel like your life belongs to you. This freedom changes you. It makes you walk differently, think differently, and choose differently. Approval becomes irrelevant because you finally understand that your value doesn't come from others. It comes from the way you carry yourself. Number 5, the moment you own your past, you become unstoppable. This transformation comes from something most people run from: the past. Many people see themselves as permanently damaged because of their past mistakes, failures, or experiences. They treat their history like a chain around their neck. But the Stoics believe that nothing that happens to you has the power to define you unless you give it permission. Your past doesn't make you broken. It makes you aware. It makes you wiser. It gives you experience that others don't have. When you stop seeing your past as a curse and start seeing it as training, everything changes. Every mistake you've made has taught you something about who you want to be or who you never want to be again. Every loss has shown you what truly matters. Every heartbreak has sharpened your judgment. Every failure has increased your strength to endure. You are not the same person you were during your worst moment. You have grown. You have evolved. You have survived things you thought would destroy you. And yet, here you are, still standing, still breathing, still capable of becoming someone extraordinary. The Stoics taught that obstacles are not interruptions to your path. They are part of the path. Your past is not your punishment. It is your preparation. When you finally accept everything that has happened without shame, resistance, or regret, you become unstoppable. Why? Because nothing can be used against you anymore. When you own your story, no one can weaponize it. When you embrace your past, it becomes a source of power, not pain. You walk through life with a grounded confidence because you know you've faced darkness before and grew from it. This acceptance gives birth to unshakable self-trust. You begin to believe in yourself not because life has been easy, but because you have walked through difficulty with resilience. This is the mindset of someone who sees themselves clearly. You're not defined by a version of you that no longer exists. You're defined by what you choose to become from this moment forward. And once you understand that, you're free to rewrite your path with intention, clarity, and strength. Your identity becomes something beautiful, something earned, something crafted through effort and courage. And the way you see yourself transforms forever. Number 6, you can change your life the moment you change what you tolerate. Every person has a hidden list of things they tolerate: habits, behaviors, excuses, environments, and situations that quietly drain their potential. The Stoics believed that suffering begins not with big events, but with the small things you allow repeatedly. Every time you tolerate procrastination, you reinforce it. Every time you tolerate being treated poorly, you normalize it. Every time you tolerate your own lack of discipline, you weaken your standards. And those little tolerances become the silent architects of your identity. If you want to truly see yourself differently, you must examine what you've been allowing without even noticing. When you raise your standards, your identity rises with them. You start realizing you don't deserve chaos, disrespect, or constant distraction. You start noticing the cost of staying around the wrong people. You start understanding the damage caused by habits that steal your energy and dull your focus. The Stoics taught that every choice either strengthens your character or weakens it. That means every tolerance is a choice that shapes you, molds you, and decides who you become years from now. People rarely realize that their life changes the moment their standards change. Changing what you tolerate forces you to confront the truth. Many of your struggles didn't come from bad luck. They came from low expectations for yourself. When you expect discipline, you behave differently. When you expect respect, you walk differently. When you expect growth, you plan differently. You begin to carry yourself with a dignity that others can see even before you speak. This shift is subtle but powerful. You stop begging for better circumstances and start demanding them through your behavior. You no longer settle because you've learned to value your potential. This process isn't comfortable. It forces you to break patterns, distance yourself from certain people, and abandon parts of your old identity. But that discomfort is the birthplace of transformation. When you stop tolerating what hurts you, you finally make room for what strengthens you. You create space for discipline, peace, purpose, and clarity. You begin to realize that the world treats you the way you teach it to treat you. And when you teach the world that you respect yourself, everything in your life begins to shift. And as your standards rise, so does your self-image. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances and start seeing yourself as the architect of your reality. You walk with a new sense of power, not because life became easier, but because you finally stopped accepting the things that made you weaker. Number 7, you become unstoppable when you live in alignment with your values. Most people never sit down and ask themselves the most important question: what do I truly value? They chase goals society hands them. They follow paths that other people approve. They want what the crowd wants, even if it doesn't feel right inside. But the Stoics believed that the greatest strength comes from living in alignment with your values, your inner compass. When your actions match your principles, you feel grounded. You feel clear. You feel confident. And when they don't, you feel lost and conflicted. Your self-image collapses when you betray your values, even in small ways. When you start identifying what truly matters to you, your life becomes simpler. If you value peace, you stop entertaining drama. If you value growth, you stop wasting time. If you value discipline, you stop indulging in excuses. Values give you direction when emotions try to confuse you. They help you make decisions that represent the best version of yourself. And the more your choices align with your values, the more respect you gain for yourself. This self-respect becomes the foundation of your identity. Living your values also protects you from emotional chaos. When you know what truly matters, you stop caring what others think. You stop panicking about outcomes. You stop trying to impress people who don't share your principles. The Stoics believe that virtue, not success, not praise, not popularity, was the highest good. This meant living with honesty, discipline, wisdom, and courage. When you commit to these values, your identity becomes rooted in something that cannot be taken away from you. This alignment creates inner strength that people can feel. You walk into a room differently. You speak differently. You choose differently. You stop being pulled in every direction because you know who you are and what you stand for. And when temptation shows up, you resist. Not because you're perfect, but because you refuse to betray your values. That is real discipline. That is real character. An identity built on character is stronger than identity built on achievement. When you live by your values, the way you see yourself changes forever. You no longer define yourself by mistakes or doubts. You define yourself by the principles you honor. And that creates a quiet, powerful confidence that no one can shake. Number 8, you grow fast when you learn to sit with discomfort. Most people avoid discomfort as if it's dangerous. They run from boredom, silence, effort, rejection, and uncertainty. But the Stoics believed that discomfort is the training ground of the mind. The moment you stop running from discomfort, you grow. When you sit with restlessness instead of distracting yourself, your self-awareness deepens. When you sit with fear instead of avoiding challenges, courage grows. When you sit with frustration instead of reacting impulsively, your self-control strengthens. Discomfort is not a punishment, it is preparation. Growth doesn't happen in easy moments. It happens when you push through the limits of your comfort zone. Think of every area you want to improve: your discipline, your mental toughness, your patience, your emotional control, your focus. Every one of these qualities is strengthened through discomfort. If you avoid discomfort, you avoid growth. But when you face it willingly, you begin to build a sense of inner power. Each challenge you endure becomes a brick in the foundation of a stronger identity. The Stoics trained themselves to endure discomfort not to suffer, but to become free. They understood that if you fear discomfort, the world controls you. But if you embrace it, you become untouchable. When you don't fear being bored, you can concentrate. When you don't fear rejection, you can be authentic. When you don't fear failure, you can take bold action. Discomfort becomes your ally. It becomes a sign that you are expanding beyond old limits. And every time you push through it, your mind recalibrates what it believes you can handle. The more you sit with discomfort, the more your identity shifts. You stop seeing yourself as fragile and start seeing yourself as capable. You stop relying on motivation and start relying on discipline. You stop needing perfect conditions to grow. You understand that the path to becoming the person you want to be is filled with difficult moments, and you learn to welcome them. This mindset creates resilience so deep that even setbacks lose their power. And over time, discomfort becomes familiar, not pleasant, but purposeful. You start associating it with growth, not suffering. And the person who can willingly embrace discomfort becomes someone the world cannot break. That is when your self-image transforms into something powerful and unshakable. Number 9, your future changes the moment you stop living in reaction. The average person lives their life reacting to emotions, reacting to people, reacting to situations, reacting to chaos. They wake up and immediately respond to the world instead of creating direction for their own life. This reactive lifestyle creates confusion, anxiety, and instability. The Stoics believed that you cannot control the world, but you can control your response. When you shift from reacting to choosing your actions intentionally, your identity becomes stable. You begin to see yourself as someone who is in charge of their life. When you react impulsively, you become a slave to circumstances. If someone insults you, you feel attacked. If something goes wrong, you panic. If plans fall apart, you feel lost and helpless. But when you respond with reason instead of emotion, everything changes. You become calm in situations that once scared you. You become thoughtful in moments where you used to rush. You act based on values, not feelings. This shift is one of the most powerful transformations any person can experience. Living intentionally means creating space between the event and your reaction. That space is where wisdom lives. That space is where clarity grows. Seneca taught that we are often more frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than reality. When you stop reacting automatically, you stop feeding fear, insecurity, and overthinking. You begin to see things as they are, not as your emotions exaggerate them. This clarity helps you make smarter decisions and protect your peace. This transformation also changes how others see you. People begin to rely on your stability. They sense your calmness. They trust your judgment. You become the grounded presence in environments where everyone else is overwhelmed. But more importantly, you begin to trust yourself. You start to believe in your ability to handle whatever life throws at you. And that self-trust becomes one of the strongest pillars of your identity. When you stop living in reaction, You stop being a passenger in your own life. You take control of your direction. You act with intention, clarity, and wisdom. And the way you see yourself changes from someone who is at the mercy of life to someone who is capable of shaping it. Number 10. You transform when you realize you are not competing with anyone. Comparison is one of the most destructive habits of the modern mind. You look at someone else's success, and suddenly your own progress feels small. You see someone else's confidence, beauty, intelligence, or lifestyle, and suddenly your self-worth drops. But the Stoics warn that comparison corrupts the soul. It tricks you into measuring your value through someone else's path. And the more you compare, the more you lose sight of your own gifts, your own rhythm, and your own growth. The truth is, you are not here to be better than anyone. You are here to grow into the strongest version of yourself. No two people have the same past, the same strengths, the same challenges, or the same opportunities. So comparing lives is like comparing mountains. Each one was shaped by completely different storms. When you drop comparison, you free yourself from insecurity. You stop feeling behind. You stop feeling less. You stop treating life like a race you're losing. When you stop competing with others, you start competing with your past self. That is the only comparison that brings growth. You measure yourself by who you were yesterday, not who someone else is today. This gives you a clear sense of direction. You wake up asking, how can I improve myself? Instead of how do I catch up to them? Progress becomes internal. Success becomes personal. Your identity becomes rooted in who you are becoming, not in how you rank. This mindset also brings peace. You stop judging others and you stop judging yourself. You start appreciating people instead of resenting them. You start learning from them instead of competing with them. You begin to see the world without jealousy or insecurity. And that clarity helps you walk your own path with confidence and focus. The Stoics believe that envy is the enemy of wisdom because it blinds you to your own potential. When you truly internalize that you are not in competition with anyone, your self-image becomes grounded in something unshakable. You finally realize that the only person you must surpass is the person you were yesterday. And once you commit to that perspective, your growth becomes inevitable, your peace becomes stable, and your identity becomes strong. When you put all these shifts together, something powerful happens. You stop seeing yourself through old stories, fears, or limitations, and you begin to see yourself through truth, through clarity, through strength. You realize you are not your past, not your thoughts, not other people's opinions, and not the version of yourself you once believed you were stuck with. You become someone who chooses their actions, honors their values, embraces discomfort, and builds their identity through discipline rather than emotion. And from that place, your entire life begins to change. Not because the world becomes easier, but because you finally understand who you are and what you're capable of becoming. The future is now in your hands. Shape it with intention, courage, and wisdom. If you found value in this message, make sure you like the video and subscribe for more Stoic wisdom.